One. Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful and very humbled to be joined by Jackie Durnin. I'll tell everyone the truth. Jackie's assistant emailed me about a month ago, and I get a lot of these emails. So for anyone out there listening, I don't reply to all of them, but this one intrigued me. It was about a health retreat in the hinterland. I'm not too far away from where I live now, and I'm like, I need to get her on. I feel like I need to get her on. And I was looking at the retreat. She's the health retreat founder of Hinterland Health Retreat, and I was looking at the retreat, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, I have to talk to this person. Like, I just knew something. We scheduled a chat for a couple of hours ago, and we never even got to a recording. We spoke about some really, really deep things, and I feel like I've met Jackie before. There's obviously a connection here, and yeah, her story is unbelievable. I don't really have any other words to describe it. So, Jackie, welcome to the show. I really wanted to tell that story. That as soon as I saw that email, I get a lot of them. Yours was, yeah, I needed to get you on, and I felt like the last few hours have played out beautifully, and here we are now. So, Jackie, welcome.
No, thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Jackie, your story is like, I don't know where to start with it. I'll let you take the floor and you can sort of direct this now. Your story is really, really powerful. So the floor is
Yeah,
yours.
well, I think it starts with, as you mentioned, I'm opening a health retreat in the hinterland up here in Sunshine Coast. But why that's come about is I wanted to create a safe space for people to come and heal, whether that be from trauma, depression, anxiety, or addiction, or whatever it may be, or maybe they just want a health reset. And that's all come about because I've been on my own healing journey for many years. So I was sexually abused as a child, and it took me a long time to, I suppose, come to terms with that or really accept what happened, as well as go and get treatment or get healing in relation to that and talk to someone. And you may detect I have an Irish accent. So it actually took me leaving Ireland to come to Australia. And I think for the first number of years being in Australia, I was, just backpacking, having fun, getting drunk. But, if I had too many drinks, I would be the sad drunk because I had so much sadness inside me that needed to come out. But again, I didn't mentally join the dots that that's why I was crying. I always seemed to have a reason to be crying. Or I think over the years, I firmly believe that you release an energetic wave out to the universe and it will bring back situations so that it will bring up whatever you need to be dealing with. So I was sending out many waves over the years, and situations would be coming into my life. When I was 18, the boy that I was kind of seeing, snogging, was in an accident and died. And what that was bringing up for me was helplessness, hopelessness, out of control, very similar sets of emotions to what I felt when I was abused as a child. A year later, the boy that I was seeing at around the anniversary of the other guy's death, I was having almost a panic attack that something was going to happen to him. And sure enough, the weekend, I think before, he was in an accident with four of his friends, and it was reported he was dead, but he actually survived the accident. And I had this thing: is there something? Am I a jinx? Is there something wrong with me? Like, geez, two boys in 2 years, like. But I kept attracting these situations that brought up a lot of sadness, overwhelm, almost frozen as well. Like, and total shock. And again, that brings me back to what I was experiencing in childhood. But now I can reflect back. But at that time, I wasn't joining the dots. The universe is actually trying to tell you, look inside, Jackie, there's stuff that you need to heal. But as an 18 or a 19-year-old, I just thought, let's just keep going and try and get through this and get to the other side. But therapy wasn't an option. Like at home in Ireland, it's not something, I think it was quite stigmatized. I grew up in a small town, and we had what was then called a mental institution. It was the place where people went if they were mentally unwell. And it was really talked about in a very derogatory manner. So, and it wasn't very available from my experience, but I also came from a background unemployed home. So it wasn't I had a lot of access to cash to be going to access these services. So coming to Australia was a breath of fresh air, and it wasn't until I started getting into relationships that big triggers started happening. And I knew that I also, in my work life and broader circles, I kept attracting situations where men would be inappropriate. So they would say something inappropriate. They would, um, go to kiss me on the cheek, but they'd kiss me on the mouth, or they'd suck my toe, or, just crossing my boundaries. And then I'd be this frozen, lose my voice, didn't know what to say. And I eventually ended up in counseling. So, and for anybody out there, my advice is when you go to counseling, don't give up the first time. I've had some very good experiences and I've had also some not so good experiences. And it really is about the person who's sitting in front of you. Sometimes you can gel with them, and sometimes you can not gel with them. It's like a friendship. Um, you can have people out there who you're attracted to as a friend, and people who they just don't resonate. And it's the same with a counselor or a psychologist, or if there's someone you're going to talk to. If you're not getting much out of that session, don't give up. Go to somebody else. Um, so I've been to lots of traditional type therapy, psychologist or counseling, psychotherapy type sessions. But then I also started going down a bit of an alternative path. I don't really call them alternative, but some people would. I tried everything from hypnotherapy, rebirthing, kahuna massages, um, medical mediums. I did, it's not medical medium, medical intuition. I did past life regression, EFT. The list went on. And there were some things that were just really resonated with me. EFT was something I did a weekend workshop of. Someone told me it works for depression, anxiety, addiction, physical pain. And I thought, what a load of shit. As if there's something out there that can help with all those things. But I'm so desperate to fix me because felt so broken that I wanted to go along. And I went on a weekend workshop and I remember feeling significantly lighter. And I thought, geez, there must be something to this. So I proceeded to train to become a practitioner with zero intention of ever being a practitioner. I was just doing it because if I became a practitioner, I would know everything then to fix me. And but through that process, to become a practitioner, you have to sit face to face and do sessions. And I just experienced and facilitated the light going back on in people's eyes time and time again. And it's a very beautiful experience to witness, helping someone reconnect with themselves again, reconnect with my business used to be called Your Inner Power, because I personally believe we all have an inner power and we're magicians, but we've been using our power for bad in a lot of instances, unconsciously. When if we can tap into that power and use it for good, we can create pure magic in our lives. And I think through EFT, I got to work on my memories of sexual abuse and be able to freely talk about it and not choke up or not flush. My cheeks wouldn't get embarrassed at the thought of what I was saying. Or even there's a technique with EFT where you can re-imprint a new memory. So the thought process is when you see a memory in your mind, a lot of the time you're seeing it from a third person. You can see you in the memory. But if you're in the memory, then you've made the picture up, because that's physically impossible for you to have taken a picture of yourself in a memory, if that makes sense. So the idea being, if you've made a picture up that makes you feel like shit, ultimately, or not very good when you look at that picture, why not make up a better picture? So once you're able to look at the original picture and there's zero emotion attached to it, then create a picture of something that you'd actually like to be happening instead, which is a very powerful thing to do, and especially for your inner child. Because if you've had any sort of trauma in the past, it's very important to do inner child work. And for me, on my journey, a discovery that I had was how much I hated her. And I thought she was, well, I had many names for her. I thought she was stupid because the sexual abuse happened more than once. And I blamed her because she went back to the location where it happened. But in retrospect, she was a child. She was young. She was innocent. She was trusting. I'm a very big hearted individual and I like to see the light in people. So I think that was with me when I was a child. I always saw the good, even if there was not bad, but if people weren't doing good things, I was always trying to focus on the good in them. Um, so I through that journey, I think I've come to a very deep place of healing with her, and I see what an amazing, resilient little girl she was. And the things that I did to block out memories so that I could survive and thrive and be here talking to you. Because, like I'd said earlier, if this abuse didn't happen, would I be here talking to you now? I've been on this journey for a reason, and I now get to open a health retreat at the end of November where we can create tailored programs for each individual. And the goal is that hopefully we never have to see them again. We want to really
Yeah.
set them up for success, that they can have tools, they'll have a comprehensive aftercare system, support system in us, and we can hopefully they'll be riding the waves of life in a resilient manner and not defaulting back to old patterns or behaviors or belief systems that had been operating unconsciously or subconsciously for their entire life. I don't want to be one of those retreat spaces that have a revolving door. I just want to help people heal and tap into that power and then be the manifestors of what they truly want to create, which is a very powerful place to be.
Very powerful
I think
story,
that's it
very
in a
powerful
nutshell.
work. Yeah, it's awesome. I just wanted to circle back to that. Much to unpack. We'll get to the retreat. I feel like we'll get there, but I just wanted to circle back to that little girl. What was the moment? Well, not really a moment, but what was the start of changing your perception towards that younger version of you? How were you able to change it from a negative to a more of a positive with that younger version of you? What were some things that you might have done
Well, I
with that?
think I got told, I remember I did a kinesiology session and it really became apparent that I hated, like, really disliked her. And she said to me, your little girl has been screaming at you for like most of your life, begging to get your attention. And on some level, she didn't say this, but I kind of had this realization that I had become her abuser. So um, I abused her by just completely flat out ignoring her. And she just desperately needed my attention. And she suggested I go home and spend a couple of hours playing with her, hanging out with her. And I remember my husband was out at the time, and I went home for like 2 hours, and I was like imagining doing like ring a ring of rosies, and I was doing like round and round the garden, and I had a bath, and I had little ducks in the bath. Like it sounds bonkers, but I really wanted to try and connect to what that little girl wanted. And I every time I could close my eyes, I could see her starting to smile more, whereas
Um,
she was very I have this photograph of me when I was a kid and I just didn't know how to smile. I remember the photographer going, smile. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And I just very, but I was just full of sadness. And I could see that girl's emotion, like her facial expression change and she began to smile more. And over the months, years, if I'm triggered, I realize it's her that's in the driving seat. It's not adult Jackie. It's that younger version of myself who feels scared, unsafe, um, is worried something is going to happen. Um, those triggers don't happen now. Like I don't really they happen the odd time, but they used to be so frequent. But the more that I can reassure her and the more time that I spend with her, and I don't have to spend that much time with her now, but then I just had to just do some concentrated time of acknowledging her, asking her what she wanted, and going off on adventures in my mind with her, just imagine us playing at the beach and building a sandcastle, or playing with dolls, or giving her stuff that she didn't have when she was younger, maybe. Um, and let her validate her, let her be heard, let her be seen. What did she need back then that she didn't get? I can give her that. I can give her that and more. And that's where the shift begins to happen. So, you know, anyone who's had any childhood trauma, your little boy or little girl is screaming at you and really wants to talk to you. And that can be a scary thought, or even an uncomfortable thought, because you may not want to hang out with that person, because you may have, quite like me, you may be disgusted or angry or annoyed or whatever it is with them. But there's so much gain, and um, there's such a big reward by reuniting with them. And you become more of a whole person, right? Because on some level, you've disconnected from that part of you. And you can put a lot of stuff to peace, and you then won't get as triggered by things in your environment if you can start working through all that stuff.
Yeah, that's really powerful work. And I know for me with mine, it's a similar thing. And for me, it's just looking at a photo, like looking at a photo of my old self or my old child, and yeah, and doing what you do and just sitting with that younger version playing, or even just walking up. I find walking up to him and just giving him a hug and saying that everything's going to be okay. It's a super
Yeah.
powerful sort of experience for me. Yeah, it's just a real special thing, and it's not something that the everyday Joe will do out there in society, but you can see the everyday Joe out there in society that there is just a little boy inside that just wants to be held and told that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. And I had that experience quite a few years ago. I got the opportunity to go to the world's leading drug and alcohol rehab in Hawaii. So they have a 3 year program, and 85% of their clients are transferred from the prison system for drug related offenses. And it's run um, like an army camp. You know, if they leave a light on, they're going to be reprimanded, and they'll have to stand in the yard with a pair of stockings on their head, like, and they'll be shamed. And like some of the things it was very difficult to witness, but they've got a very good success rate, and they wanted EFT practitioners to go in to help them with the addicted feeling, because even though their program's 3 years long, people would still have that addicted feeling. So our job was to do a session, and we were given fake drug kits, and we would have to remove that addicted feeling. And you watch these people, you talk about, there's all these people out there. I watch these people with, tattoos all over their body. They're people that you probably would be scared to meet down a dark lane. And when I got into a one-on-one, they're just little boys and little girls who had trauma. And reconnecting them with that little boy and little girl, it was so powerful. And I watched in a 2 hour session a lot of times that feeling towards, let's say I had a heroin needle in my hand, it would be at 10 out of 10. And by the end of the session, it would be at 0. The emotional attachment would just dissolve. It was so, so powerful. And being able to teach them this technique that they could do on themselves was amazing. But inner child work is so powerful. And like you say, I think there's a lot of us that go around our day to days, and we desperately need to connect to our inner child. But we're busy people, and we have lots of excuses. And maybe social media is more important to some people, but our inner child is, I think, screaming at a lot of us,
Mm.
and really wants us to just connect and hang out.
Yeah, you can definitely see that out there in society now, and we're getting to a point now where it's time that people connect with themselves and that inner child again, because we're at a very significant point in time right now that people are going to be making that choice of making that path. You're going to stick to what you've known your whole life in terms of what's familiar, or you're going to go on another path and you're going to rediscover yourself. People are at that time of making that conscious choice of, okay, well, if there's something better out here, well, let's go over here and let's discover what that is. But when you make that choice, you're going to have a lot of stuff come up, and it's going to be inner children, traumas, everything. I think we're at
Mm,
a very significant point in time right now.
I totally agree. And I think, that a lot of people are afraid they're scared of the unknown. Like sometimes it's easier, even if it's painful, it's easier to do what you've been doing all these years. Even if it means that you have a bit of emotional pain or physical pain, rather than going into the unknown. But I would argue it's easier to go into the unknown because the rewards are so huge.
They are.
And it'll never be as scary as you think it's going to be. I think we build it up in our heads to be so huge, like, oh my God, I just don't think I could ever face that. But when you get there, it's not as bad as you imagine it to be. And especially if you have good therapists around you. Um, as I said, we're very powerful. We created these emotional states in our body, so we can uncreate them at any time.
Yeah, and it's a matter of going back and sifting through that stuff to get to the next whatever's next, right? And there's
Yeah,
always something else, you get to a certain point, and you see this with everyone, and I got to that point too. Like you get to a certain point that everyone around you is not doing what you're doing. You might have lost a bit of weight, you might be eating healthy, you might be taking more care of yourself, and those around you aren't. It's like, well, a lot of people will just fall back in because it's unsafe, it's unfamiliar to be the healthier version, the cleaner version, the stronger one.
yeah,
But it's so familiar. We attach so much to that old version of ourselves that we just go back there naturally because that's how we're designed. It's like
yeah,
if we can reprogram, reshape, we can actually move forward and not be sucked back by those in the crab bucket trying to pull us back. We can keep forward. And it's interesting that we're all at different stages, we're all on different journeys. But with the inner child stuff, that helps you detach from the old you to transform into the new you that's
yeah,
doing awesome things, Jackie.
yeah. I did remember doing this little exercise on that EFT first weekend where we were giving a little mini bar of Cadbury's chocolate. And it was like, how much do you want that chocolate out of 10? And most people, because it was coming up to a break, were like 10 out of 10. And we got to smell it and maybe even nibble it. And by the end of like 5 minutes, most people were at 0 out of 10. And the whole thing around that was um, there's no love in chocolate. A lot of people have associations with, like, let's say food. My grandmother gave me that, or and that symbolized chocolate, or dad would used to get me a bar of chocolate coming home from school, or whatever it may be. And when you actually take the love away from the chocolate and you actually truly taste chocolate, it doesn't taste it doesn't taste anything like it has all these years, if that makes sense. And that's the same with any food. I've had people in EFT do sessions on food they didn't like. So they had a lady who didn't like green tea and she wanted to like it because she believes it had health benefits. But she had a belief and an association from the past that was making it taste a certain way. But when we removed those filters, she got a different taste. And it's the same with chocolate or crisps or whatever it is. It may be even a thing that we do. We
Mm.
might watch a certain show because we've got this feeling. Oh, I used to watch this show with my mum cuddling on the couch or whatever, you know what I mean? And it creates that warmth, loving feeling. But it's not the show that's doing that. You do that to yourself. So it's like when you make that connection in your mind that you're actually the common denominator here and you're the one making all of these emotional states, it's not the external things. Then it's like, okay, well, what emotional state do you truly want to create moving forward? And
And
who do you want to be?
yeah, and that's the most, no, not necessarily, actually, no, it is. It's actually the most brutal way. It's such a harsh reality, though, isn't it? Because I
Yeah,
know for me, when I had that epiphany that all these things, like, it's like a power thing. You're handing your power away to that person that took that from you or did that to you or whatever it was, or that situation or whatever. And then you're like, well, that's like, I allowed that to happen. Doesn't matter how old or young
yeah,
you are. It's like, I allowed that to happen. And that's a brutal thing because it's like, well, yeah, I did. And
yeah,
it's a matter of then walking that path of forgiveness.
totally. Because I think we as humans, you hear about manifestation and people go, When it's good, we've manifested. When it's bad, we have had nothing to do with it. It's like, well, how does that work? You're the common denominator in both. And but that's a very interesting, like you say, it's a brutal reality. Like, did I manifest my childhood trauma? But on some level, well, maybe some level, maybe I did. But it's about me and how I choose to deal with that, and how I choose to, what kind of life I choose to create moving forward. Do I choose to be the victim, and or do I choose to be empowered and use that knowledge and that experience for good?
Yeah, it's so true. And that's where everyone's at, like even with the things that are going on in the world too. I believe that that's a mirror for us in terms of there's so much darkness you could say in the world, but then there's if you're viewing that darkness in the world, well, then there's darkness in you. And the only way that the darkness in the world can become light is if you become more light and you're shining a light on your darkness. I find that it's not necessarily the darkness that we're afraid of. We're afraid of going back and shining our own light on it. So therefore, I believe we're afraid of our own power.
So true.
Mm.
And I think it's that fear of standing out from the crowd or being seen, maybe. And I even had that, I think, over the years.
Of course.
Back 19 years ago, I wrote a book on baby sign language, and there was a real fear of me being seen and what would people think. I was in my 20s, and I had the I wasn't script in my head of all the things that I wasn't. I wasn't a doctor, a nurse, or a teacher, and I wrote a book on baby sign language. But what I had to come and tell myself was I'm the person who's passionate about baby sign language, and I'm the one who put in the effort to write this book and put it together for parents. Um, so I think, yeah, we it's what you choose to focus on. Like you say, you can choose to focus on the dark or you can choose to focus on the light. And I choose to focus on the light, and that we are all very powerful and we can create amazing things. And if we are given the right tools and the right environment, we can thrive, like flourish. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's about, we aren't shown these things inside our mainstream systems either. Like we were talking off air earlier. And like I believe that the school system and other systems that we have, it's the same system, but that those systems disempower us from such a young age that we then step out into the world and we are so programmed and indoctrinated that we just have this deeply embedded program inside our psyches that we are powerless, and that all we do is work, come home, work, come home, work, come home, work, come home. It's like we're so much more than that, and you see it with the family union stuff too. Like we have parents having dinner with their kids, going to bed, waking up, having breakfast, and then separating for like 8, 9 hours a day. Like where did it's I ask this to my guests all the time. How did we get to this point where our families are all doing things they don't really want to do anyway? Like no kid enjoys school, no parent enjoys going to work every day. But we've become so ingrained in this system because through schooling we're trained to be these workers. We don't have people like you coming in there that is an entrepreneur that runs a health retreat saying to kids, hey, there's some pretty cool things going on just over the back here in the hinterland. It's like, no, we'll just get Joey the firefighter to come in and run a career day. Be like, being a firefighter is great. You can, the job thing, right? We need to. I find we need to get out of that job focused programming and into creating things for ourselves. But we're not shown that in school. We're shown
Yeah.
a version of it, but we're shown to write resumes and cover letters. It's like, where are we at?
Yeah.
We need to go this way now. We need to allow kids to be able to create things for themselves.
But we're not also shown how to be in a relationship in school, like what
No, another one.
communication tools. Like going into relationships, like I just had no idea because I had no blueprint. I didn't know how to be in a relationship, how to communicate. I
Mm.
didn't know about attachment theories. I didn't understand love languages. And it's like, why isn't any of this taught in schools? Like every human being should learn about this. So then when you go into a relationship, you'd be able to navigate it a little bit better and you'd have
Mm.
some understanding maybe of your partner and their attachment style or their love language, which would make relationships maybe a little bit easier.
But instead, you have TV shows, or you have actually, firstly, you have education in schools. You must put a condom on a banana, which is completely, anyway, that's another topic. And then you have the TV shows that are full of lying, cheating, stealing. So you're not really getting educated on anything other than lying, cheating, stealing, and how to put a condom on a banana. That's not education. Never
Yeah.
was,
And
never
this
will be.
fairy tale, like this Cinderella, find your Prince Charming, happy ever after. It's like this fantasy rather than what a relationship is about, and working, growing together, working through stuff. Um, but Cinderella didn't have any communication tools either. So how did she have a happy ever after if she didn't have all of that?
Mm.
So I think it would just be really important that schools start introducing things like that so that um, kids are aware from an early age how to communicate, how to validate someone, how to be heard. Um, all those things would just make life so much easier.
But I believe we've come here to learn all this stuff anyway, and we've come here to do awesome things. But I believe that that's all set up for a reason for us to regain and find our power eventually, like walking the hero's journey path. Like, I believe all this is here for a reason, and so are we. And it's all about us rediscovering who we are at heart and at our core,
Yeah,
which
I
is
would.
why all this is here. It's like a big giant test of growth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good test.
Yeah. Some of us are on different sort of journeys than others. Some of us have been impacted in other ways. I think that's all why we're here. We're here to break the shackles and untether and step into who we're supposed to step into, and that is our power.
Yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
Definitely agree.
I got a question for you though, Jackie. So back to the health retreat. So you've sort of gone on your journey, a really powerful journey, and then obviously you found EFT and all these things. When did it come to a point where you're like, oh, I want to build this project and build this beautiful retreat? How did all that sort of start?
I had worked at a health retreat up here for a number of years, and then I started doing my own health retreats after that. So I did small groups, and I was doing one-on-one retreats from home. And then I gave birth to my son. So he was 10 years in the making. So once he arrived, I just wanted to dedicate lots of quality time to him. And when he just last year, so he was 6, um, I was talking with friends saying, I used to do health retreats. I think that's something I would love to go back to, but I'm in the middle of building a house. Life's busy. Um, I, yeah, it's something that will happen. And um, she mentioned it to her husband, and literally weeks later, he's ringing me going, um, you know, we want to support you setting up a health retreat. And I'm like, what? And next thing we know, we're, getting a property in the hinterland. And I think the original concept for the health retreat um, kind of started to grow because I became aware of, while I wanted wholesome, organic, beautiful food, and I wanted food that supported the genetic makeup of that person. So, is there food that's genetically suitable for that person? I wanted an IV clinic on site. I wanted mind, body, spirit therapies because I think I've seen where some facilities only would have mind therapies. And I feel it's really important to have mind, body, spirit, food, movement, sound, all of those things are really important. Um, but then I had kind of fallen into a lot of research around technology and the use of technology for mental health and addiction. And I was like, surely there has to be technology that we can use to help this process, maybe even fast track it. And I did find quite a few, I'm calling them neurotechnologies, that um, do a number of things, whether it's help relax your nervous system, stimulate your vagus nerve, which is really good for depression and anxiety. An amazing chair, a meditation chair, that 10 minutes in the chair is equivalent to you meditating by yourself for a year. So it puts you into a deep, deep theta state. They're using with Ukrainian soldiers on the front line of the war at the moment and traumatized children. Red light therapy for your gut and your brains. So what I liked about that is like there's a lot of theories that depression, anxiety starts in the gut. So it's like, well, if we can heal the gut, so using red light therapy pad on the gut and the brain at the same time, um, having cold plunges, lymphatic drainage. So we then were creating this wellness hub on site. And the idea being that by having this hub, we would be hopefully supporting people to get into out of that fight or flight state if they're traumatized or whatever's going on for them, into a state that they can actually go to a therapy session and talk about what's going on for them, where we can relax their body and they can be in the present moment and experience all of the things that we have on offer and come out the other end with all those belief systems being removed, all of those memories that they need to have dealt with being dealt with. And hopefully, we've been creating new neural pathways, and these technologies will help cement those in.
Sounds awesome. So you
It is
touched on red
very,
light therapy too. Red light's pretty powerful, and the lights in our home, it's just like, yeah, we are. It's like our circadian rhythms are all out of whack too, given the way things are going on in society too. Like people aren't getting to bed on time. We're supposed to wake up with the sun, but people sleep in, or it's like, and then the lights in our house. Well, actually, these are computer glasses. You can probably see the blue light bouncing off them now. And of the
yeah,
night time, I wear the red light glasses too. It's like, yeah, people just aren't educated on what's like. They just accept that the TV says this, the TV says that. It's like, well, there's more information out there. I believe it's all a big psychological operation. I really do believe that they are psychologically programming us to fit a certain way. And then those of us with the eyes to see are sort of helping people drag themselves out of that
yeah.
mind spell.
But I think when you're in it, so I remember in my 20s moving in with a friend of mine, and she was a vegetarian. And I remember I was cooking dinner one night, and she described me as quite an unhealthy eater, and I was really shocked. But I was like, "What do you mean? I've got my jar of pasta sauce here that I'm pouring on my pasta, and I had some meat. Like it was just basically processed stuff. But because it said healthy on the front or whatever, in my early 20s, I honestly believed I ate healthily. Like it was, and I was like, what do you mean? And I remember being so shocked and so like hurt because I thought I was making the right choices. But like to your point, I was just listening to the marketing that
Mm.
said, you know, low sugar, low fat, healthy, whatever. And it took even that journey has been really interesting for me. Eating real food and
Hmm.
exploring many different eating types and even trying zeolites to help detoxify my body. I recently gave recommended a zeolite to my cousin in Ireland who had a 1.5-year-old with severe eczema or eczema on their body, and they were recommended steroid cream. And my cousin was really anti that, didn't really want to do it, but was doing it when the baby was really, really upset, and nappy changes were really uncomfortable. I said, why don't you try this? Because in this group that I'm in, everybody's raving about it for eczema. And within a week, things had cleared up. And I messaged him this week, and he has finished his first bottle of this zeolite, just giving one spray a day to his daughter. And her body's completely free of eczema. There's nothing on her body. Nappy changes are a breeze. She's happy. Nothing's, because the back of her knees and her jaw, like back of her ankles, around her bum and her back were very raw. And he's just like, I can't get over like a simple spray, but she needed to detoxify.
Mm.
And just very, very powerful. It's amazing when you just get back to, basic food and using vitamins and supplements when needed to support your body, and making sure you are doing some sort of detoxification. The power of that is huge.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's not shown in schools too. And they're not shown how to eat properly. You got the bullshit food pyramids. People aren't shown like they're watching the TV, so it's getting filled with Maccas and Hungry Jacks and all these fast food outlets. Kids aren't taught to read food labels. Like there's numbers in the food that you get, like the food numbers are basically poisons. It's like there's so many challenges along the way for you to, and I feel like
Yeah.
they're put there for a reason. But yeah, it's like going back to the old ways. Like we go to a lot of markets now and we get our organic food from the Kiwana Farmers Market here. And it's like, well, people just don't do that. They still go to those mainstream supermarkets because they're just not aware that the food in there is not great. It's an
Yeah.
interesting way to look at it, but I believe what you're doing and what some other and what you're doing is great. Like we're re-educating people, but also helping them take back their power that they can make better choices. The choices they were making weren't necessarily their choices, that it was put in there by external figures. And it's
Yeah.
great that you're the work that you'll be doing. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think, like you say, it's just about empowering the individual because sometimes making change can be difficult or scary, like learning
100%.
how to cook. I remember when I eradicated breakfast cereal from my life. And I remember when I thought, like, what am I going to eat though? It's like this huge. And I still have lots of friends and family who would eat breakfast cereal, and I would go to their house. They're quite surprised when they come to mine, and there's no breakfast cereal. They're like, well, what do you eat? And I'm like, well, I can eat eggs or smoothie. Like, there's
Some
lots of ways.
steak.
Exactly. But it's a mind shift that you have to go through to understand that there is lots of other things. It's just we're used to, and we've been told for a very long time that there's a cereal that you eat and it's full of vitamins and fortified with vitamins and minerals and etc. So it's healthy, and it's quick and it's convenient. But you can make a smoothie just as quickly, which is more nutrient dense for you.
Yeah. And it's also like a routine thing too. Like you're so caught up in the routine of it that that's what you do every day. And then if you don't do that, then it's like a routine thing too. So there's psychological stuff going on there too, where that's what you do. So then you just do it. It's like an automatic, it's like a habit that you must have that cereal or whatever it is, and that's like a habit too. And there's a reason why they call breakfast break fast. I believe fasting is very good for you too.
Yeah,
Mm,
I've done that too. I like doing it still. Yes, I think just giving your system some time to rest
yeah.
and recover and rejuvenate. But I think that's part of at the retreat we just educating people, doing cooking classes where they can get hands on because we don't want to. Yes, we will have chefs and they will be cooking for them, but we don't want to. We also want to empower the individual. It's not going to be spoon fed. It's like, okay, now let's get you into the kitchen. Let's get you cooking so that when you go home, that you can do this yourself because you're not going to have a chef at home. So how do we get you to learn how to cook in this way? So let's
Life
say they
skills. Love it.
exactly. Let's say it's paleo or keto or whatever is more suited for them. Make sure that they're aware how to do it, how we would give them recipes, get them lots of times to practice that so that they can be really comfortable with it rather than going home going, oh shit, now I have to start learning how to cook paleo or keto or whatever it is, which can be really overwhelming.
Mm.
So I think trying to incorporate those life skills into the retreat and then having support when they go home so that they have any questions or if something's confusing or they're not really sure that we can jump on a call and help them through.
I think life skills are very important. A lot of young people, more and more, yeah, the younger, like even my generation weren't equipped with a lot of life skills, but then I look ahead to what's coming through now, and it's like it's even less. I reckon it's gotten less and less and less over time, the life skills. And
Yeah.
it's quite uh shocking to walk into a school and see that there are 12-year-old kids that can't tie their shoelaces, that mum and dad don't cook for them. They just go get Maccas every night. Like
Yeah.
there's so many things going on in our children now that they're not shown really anything, not even basic communication. Like they might be around mum and dad fighting all the time. And then they have a relationship when they get a bit older and they'll be so used to the the fight and flight of the fighting, that then that's what they then do, and then it's just this big giant loop that just continues and continues. It's actually quite sad.
Yeah. And I think we live in a society that, um, you know, back in my grandmother's day, that it was all about community and you lived close by with your family. And, the family, the broader family brought up the child. There was a lot of people involved in that child's life, whereas now a lot of people live away from their families and we live in a kind of a deluded reality of social media and how many followers or friends we have online. But that's just a lonely existence because a lot of people don't really know how to relate offline and they only know online or they don't want to
Yeah,
be
it's
offline because they don't know how to do that. So it's a very interesting time that we're in.
yeah,
And yeah, like you say, I'm not yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I've spoken to some parents regarding the retreat and between gaming, social media, there's just a lot going on for kids today
there
that we
is.
didn't have. And there is a lot of social isolation, loneliness,
Yep, I'm seeing
bullying.
that in the work I do too.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a matter of I find a lot of children just need someone to listen to them. That's on the outside, that's not mum and dad, that's not whoever. It's just someone that's just listening to what they have going on because they're just unable to communicate. But if they have someone that's just sitting there, like me right now, and just listen. Like I have a lot of children and teens that come to me. All I do is I just listen. Sometimes I'll have a session with a teen and they'll just speak and I'll just sit there because they just need to voice something.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true for everyone. We all
Yeah,
just want to
everyone.
be
Yeah.
heard. We just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone the other week, and they were saying they had a really tough time at the beginning of the year. They ended up in a psych ward, and they were horrified because they had just come off their medication, their antidepressants, and spiraled, and just was in a bad space mentally. Went into this institution, and there were a few bipolar and um, a few other issues going on. But she said, they would come around with the meds every day. And she said it was really sad because all of these people just wanted someone to talk to,
Yeah.
but there was nobody there to talk to them. Like, yes, I think at some stages doctors came in, but she said it would have been hugely beneficial for them to just have someone come around and talk to them every day. It doesn't have to be a psychologist. Just they just want to talk to somebody. They want to talk through what's going on in their mind.
Because there's probably a
Um,
little child there that wants to be heard.
totally, totally. Um, and I'm sure that's the same for the prison system. Or I think you get that trip to Hawaii just gave me a huge insight into who's in prison. There's just a lot of traumatized kids
Yeah.
trapped in adult bodies who were doing things to, whether if it's drugs to try and numb their pain or um, were just surrounded by trauma all their life, and that's all they've ever known. Um, yeah, and they just need to be reconnected to their little child and begin the healing journey.
Because quite often than not, it's to be heard, but it's also they just want some attention.
Mm.
So they're doing that to get attention on a
Yeah,
subconscious level.
yeah. I think we've all experienced times where, I've over the years where my little girl's in control. It's like she throws the toys out of the pram, like,
Mm.
and you're behaving like a 5-year old, and it's
Yep.
like, oh my God. And that's the moment that your 5-year old or 6-year old or whatever year old needs your attention. And they just need to be heard. They need to be
Mm.
seen. They need to be validated. They need to be held, whatever it is. But just ask them and they'll let you know what they need.
If there's some advice that you would give to someone that's been listening, Jackie, that's could be on any stage of the journey, could be where you were, could be anywhere. What would be advice to actually no, we should actually I'll separate this question. If there's advice to someone that's been abused the way you have sexually, what would be advice to that person to start that journey? And then I'll ask you the next question.
To start the journey, I think don't be ashamed. I think that's a big thing. I think people are scared to speak because they're embarrassed or ashamed maybe about what happened.
Mm.
Um, and um, like I said earlier, I think the importance of meeting a practitioner who you connect with. So, and don't give up. Like if you have had a bad experience with a practitioner, go find another one.
Yep.
There's going to be one out there. Um, but talk to someone because you're going to feel so much better when you actually finally find your voice and tell people. Because your little girl has or little boy has a story to tell and it needs to be told. It needs to, you will feel much better when you've told that story. And even if you don't remember all the story, tell the bits that you remember because we're all onion layers. And I think by telling one piece of the story, that might release the next part of the story for you so that you can then process that. And when you're ready, another piece might unfold. So, and you'll only be shown what you can deal with in that moment in time. So trust you're never going to get too much at once. So I think it's about starting and trusting that trust that people are going to meet you without judgment. And if people meet you with judgment, you don't want those people in your life.
No, I agree. Second part of the question, if anyone is out there listening and wants something better for themselves, it's probably the same piece of advice. What would you probably the same piece of advice I would have thought for someone that's out there that's just wanting something better?
I would say look inside and
Mm,
um, start exploring, like do some personal development. I
yeah.
think there's so much benefit in investing in you, whatever that may be. You know, like over the years, I did MLM marketing, but the best part of those was the personal development and the things that I was learning rather than the product I was trying to sell. But I think, um, yeah, just start learning more about you because that's where the magic lies. And that's where you'll start um, opening up. Um, I think opening up maybe gifts or new aspects of you. Um, and that can only benefit you in the future.
I agree. Where can people find you, Jackie? If someone wants to reach out or whatever, where can people find you?
Yeah, if they go to hinterlandhealthretreat.com, as I said, we're opening at the end of November, but I've got a wait list opened. So if you click on there,
Oh,
you can join the wait list at the moment because, or you can submit a contact us form. We don't have phone numbers on there as yet because we're busy setting up the retreat at the moment. But feel free to fill in the contact us form or fill in the waitlist form if you're interested in the retreat, and I'll be in touch and I can answer any questions that you have.
thank you so much, Jackie. Is there anything else you would like to share before we sort of wrap things up here?
No, that's it. Thank you so much for having me on. I've really
Nah,
enjoyed it.
I was very grateful your assistant reached out. As I said, I do get a lot of those emails come in, and I usually just delete them. I don't usually read them. But yours, when it said at the top of it, health retreat, I was like, I need to read that email. So I'm glad I did. I didn't just push delete. So wasn't supposed to.
It was meant to be.
It was, yes. Looking forward to connecting with you again, Jackie. I feel like I'm going to get you back on. Yeah, I've got something to chat to you about off air. So this is the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. I'm very, very excited for the next few weeks of this podcast. There's some awesome guests coming, so stay tuned. Jackie, thank you so much for your time today. We will talk soon. See you guys. We are out of here.